Remember about this time yesterday, on the live stream anyway, I was sitting here saying, there's a rumor out there, unconfirmed, but there's a rumor that Hilton has done the right thing. They have cut ties with that franchisee that has blocked ICE agents and DHS employees from renting rooms in Minneapolis. There's a rumor. Let's see if it turns out to be not true, we're going to have to Bud Light them. Well, turns out they did do the right thing. So how about that? Good for Hilton, even though there was still a little misinformation last night that they backed off their word, but there's a reasonable explanation for that. But I'm going to put this in the category of good. How about that? But I have a question. You know, I always have questions. If an independent journalist named Nick Sorter hadn't gotten that story out, and if we didn't have less censorship to get the story out now, do we even know about it? Nope. Anyway, we'll talk about that as well as the most ridiculous, embarrassing display by politicians happened last night on the Capitol Hill steps. And that's saying something. I mean, think about all the idiots that have had that job. Their vigil for January 6th was amazing. I can't stop laughing at it. It was unbelievable pandering. We'll talk about that as well as, I told you we were going to take the oil. President Trump said it last night. Somebody better take the Venezuelan oil. It might as well be us. That, and here's a story to pay attention to. Iran is breaking out in freedom. We're still celebrating about Venezuela and freedom there. Iran is the story to pay attention to. Those brave people are finally getting it done. And Greenland? I don't know, we got a lot to cover. Anyway, every time I see the Greenland story, I think of that line from the original Superman movie in the 70s. Otisburg? Anyway, let's get to it. Thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream Monday through Friday on X and on YouTube and Facebook, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and then a replay on all those channels. And then, of course, the audio podcast posted shortly after. Let's get right to it. How about this? Here we were yesterday. Hilton, number one trending story in the world yesterday. And the background is Nick Sorter, thank God for him, God love him, independent journalist, went there and he posed as a DHS official and said, can I get a room? And they said, no, policy says you can't. This after the story had already broken by the Department of Homeland Security itself that said this kind of stuff was going on. So we were on here yesterday talking about it, and I said there's a rumor, unconfirmed, that Hilton's about to do the right thing. If they don't do the right thing and hold true to this, we're going to have to Bud Light them. It's just the way. I had my Hilton Honors account ready to be canceled. I was ready to go, but it looks like I don't have to, because look at this. It looks like they did the right thing, even with some controversy. Statement from Hilton. The independent hotel owner, that's the franchisee model we were talking about yesterday, had assured us that they had fixed the problem and published a message confirming this. A recent video, Nick Sorter, clearly raises concerns they are not meeting our standards and values. As a result, we're taking immediate action to remove this hotel from our system. Hilton is and always has been a welcoming place, blah, 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 blah. We assure this won't happen again. Fantastic. In record time. In fact, it was one of those things. It's like if you watched, and most of you see and hear the podcast, the Wicked Radio podcast, after the live stream, by that time it happened, the apology was already out. But then last night, the very same Nick Sorter went to that hotel again, and he said, they're still on the Hilton system taking reservations. There's an explanation for this. They still have to be on the system to honor Hilton Honors members and reservations they already have on the books. So it's like, they can't cut them off immediately and lock the doors. That's why that's happening. But I would have to put this in the category of good for Hilton. They did the right thing. And they did the right thing because now people know, and you could look to Bud Light as the example on why this happened. Maybe. I don't know. People know you can vote with your dollars now, and you can get your voices heard. This is proof positive happening once again. And thanks to independent journalists like Nick Sorter. He broke this story. Fantastic job. All right. Let's start off with some comedy. Not from me. I'm not funny enough to pull this off. But the Democrats are. Yesterday, I forgot it was the anniversary of January 6th. I didn't even mention it on the podcast or the live stream. It didn't even cross my mind. You know why? Because it has been revealed as such a hoax, such an orchestrated political move. Was it a good thing? No. Bunch of knuckleheads should not have been there in that situation to get roped into going into that building. We all know that by now. We've seen the security footage. We've heard the words from Nancy Pelosi's own daughter. We've heard from security guards. Back in radio days, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, I interviewed two independent people that don't know each other that were there on the ground. We found them. They called us. They were there. They proved it. Both of them, independently, at different times, said Capitol Police officers were roping them into the building. Go, 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 go. That was my first indication that it was a hoax. But they're still pushing this, that this was an insurrection. And they use that word intentionally because look at everything that happened from it. They were taking down all the political opponents, all those poor saps that got thrown in jail with no trial and still would be there if the election didn't turn out the way it was. Remember that? Also, let's not forget about this. This is also the 5-year anniversary of Twitter at the time banning President Trump. This was all coordinated too. The January 6th committees, all of this crap. We've all pretty much come to the conclusion, as unless you have severe TDS, that this thing was an orchestrated political move, and they're the real insurrectionists. Like I said, I forgot about it. I really, not the event, but that yesterday was the anniversary. But Democrats, you're going to love this, Democrats held a candlelight vigil last night to honor the occasion. They're not letting it go. Get ready to laugh out loud. You know what I love about this? Front and center, leading it, is Chucky Schumer, and you can hear him clear as day on the camera.
Guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains.
I don't know. I thought the Senate Democrats kneeling for the George Floyd protest was the most embarrassing thing I'd ever seen. This is it. This tops the cake. And it's going to be tough. It may not be in our lifetime, guys, where something is more embarrassing than that. My God. There's Chucky Schumer right in front. And guide her. Because this is all they have. Now, this may annoy you. I get it. You can laugh at it, but it's still irritating and aggravating. But you got to look at the good side of this. This is all they have left to hold on to. They have no platform. They don't have anybody on the bench. They have Trump derangement syndrome victim voters, and this is about it. Now, I've called it a hoax before, and I first got my inclination that that's exactly what it was when I started to hear, like I just told you, from people who were there on the ground and what they were told, what they saw, what happened. The guy truly, and this is a little bit sad, but the guy that truly pointed out and proved that January 6th was a masterfully orchestrated hoax was Scott Adams. The great, yes, the Dilbert guy. But Scott Adams is one of the most important America First figures that we've ever had that guided everybody through this by using his skills to point out all the hoaxes. And he talked about this just the other day. Now, here's the sad part. We're also losing Scott Adams. I'm not hyping this up. He has literally hours, if not days, if not hours to live. He's had prostate cancer. It got really bad, and he's pretty much made that announcement. But he's still, this is what a hero he is, still live streaming and podcasting every single day, like he did just yesterday, talking about this event. He was the one. Lots of people did it, but he was the one that pointed out and proved and showed everybody what an orchestrated, masterfully so, hoax January 6th and the resulting thing was. This was Scott just the other day. It's sad. I'm heartbroken because we're going to lose Scott Adams and the guys.
The whole January 6th insurrection hoax, it's just bigger than we could imagine it could be a hoax, but that's what made it invisible. Yeah, the scale of that hoax, when in fact the real insurrection was Democrats trying to remove Trump, but they did such a good job of creating this fake January 6th select committee and hunting down all the people, that they took a thing that they reversed it, essentially. They reversed reality because at the time they had the power to do that. They were the insurrectionists. And the best way they could cover up for the fact that they were the insurrectionists is by accusing the other side of being the insurrectionists.
It'd be so sad when we lose him. It's going to be a dark, dark day. But he's right. And he did such a great job in pointing out all of that stuff, all of it. And again, I'm sure you saw this yesterday, posted online, remembering the victims, like that officer that lost his life. People were murdered on January 6th. No, they weren't. There was one person murdered. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. And she was murdered without any warning. She was shot by a Capitol Police officer, shot in the neck. She's a veteran, too. She got herded in with another group of dopes that were in that lobby, and she got shot through the door window. That was the only lost life. And again, credit to Scott Adams again for saying this. One of the first points he made in pointing out that this was an absolute orchestrated hoax was pointing out, he goes, they're using the word insurrection so that they can get Trump and impeach him again and put him in jail under an insurrection act, right? That's why they used that word and kept on pushing it through their friends in the media. That's why they kept on doing that. And he said, what country has ever been taken over by cell phones and no weapons? He's so great. I'm going to miss him. But again, would we have known? Would we have known about this? If Elon, you always make fun of me, but I'm telling you, it's one of the most important points in American history. If Elon hadn't bought Twitter and turned it into X and stopped the censorship, as much as he could and can, and is still working on it, do we know any about this? Do we know the truth? Nope, I don't think so. All right, speaking of President Trump, I told you yesterday, I am taking credit for this because it was over Saturday on an emergency podcast live stream. I'm the one that told you, we're going to take the oil. I'm telling you, whether you're in favor of that or not, we're taking Venezuelan oil. Sure enough, here we are. Here's Brett Baer talking about the story last night, but in President Trump's own words. Is it America first? Well, yeah, if gas prices are down.
Breaking tonight, just moments ago, President Trump on Truth Social posting this to wrap up our last conversation. I'm pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to the benefit of the people of Venezuela and the United States. I have asked...
And you're going to hear all day long. I already have. So it was about the oil. And my answer to that is, yeah, so what? Well, you can't just invade a country. And they use that word invade. You can't invade a country and just take their oil. Why not? I don't care. No, I really don't care. Because these same clowns, these same politicians who will be saying, well, this was just about the oil, will be claiming credit when gas is $2 a gallon here pretty soon. So I hope anyway. Fingers crossed. I don't know. But we're taking the oil. If it's not us, it's Iran, China, or Russia. Why wouldn't we take the oil? Why wouldn't we funnel some of that money back into Venezuela and help those people who have been starving, by the way, for the past 20 years once communism took over? Why not? Why shouldn't we use it to help our American citizens? This country runs on energy. Why wouldn't we do that? Of course we're going to do that. Hey, speaking of Iran, I just mentioned it there briefly. We're still celebrating the big win. By the way, the poll numbers are going up on this. Celebrating a big win of freedom breaking out in Venezuela, at least the start of it. The story to watch is Iran. Have you paid any attention to this, what those brave people are doing in the streets? Taking off the burqas, marching against that Islamist regime, at great risk, by the way, at great peril, because they'll just kill them in the streets. We may have freedom in Iran again. Can you imagine that? Little example from one of the cities taken by freedom fighters, patriots in Iran, last night. It's hard for us as Americans to imagine the guts that takes, the balls that takes to march in the streets against a regime that would kill you for doing just that keeps its people captive, Islamists, with Iran, which is a nuclear power, by the way, as we all know. So you got to ask yourself, and this is the question we should all ask ourselves as America First patriots. All right, why do I care? Why do I care what happens in the streets of that city in Iran? Is it America First? Considering the fact that it is one of our mortal enemies, that regime is, not the people, not the great people of Iran, that Islamist regime is, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, we should support that. Can you imagine a free Iran? There are geopolitical experts who know how the dominoes would fall and all of that, but a free Iran with those people fighting back against a regime, it seems as though, if you read the tea leaves, it really does feel like freedom's breaking out throughout the world, doesn't it? Why does that happen? Because America's stronger these days. That's exactly why that happens. All right. There's another one where I have to ask, and I think we all have a patriotic duty to ask these questions when things happen overseas. Why do I care? Is that America first? That's the question. That's what you have to do in larger global issues. Why the hell do I care about Greenland? I'm going to put this in the category of, well, strategically, it seems as though the Trump administration sees this as a very important chip. Here's President Trump on Air Force One explaining it just the other day in his own.
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what?
All right. Strategy. Positional strategy. Strategery, even. I get it. All right. I understand that. Here's the thing. If it was any other president saying, we need Greenland, they would never say it that way. They would never speak like a real person. But if anybody else did it, Obama, Clinton, God, Biden, even Bush, I'd be worried. Because those were pro-war presidents. This guy hates war. This administration wants to avoid war at all costs, and yet sees Greenland and is saying that as a strategic opportunity. I don't know enough to not believe that's good for America first. So I'm going to be in the category of okay. I also saw this. Did you see the statement from Greenland representatives overnight? They say they're open for business. So I think they're actually looking for the best partner in the deals. And maybe that's another example of peace. Not like they were at war, but still the idea of peace and strength breaking out in another section of the world. Maybe. We'll see. So far, I'm going to say that's America first, so I'm on board. All right, again, the takeaway, good for Hilton. That seems to be a case where they did the right thing. The question is, would they have done the right thing if we don't get a hold of the information these days? No, I don't think we would have even heard about the story. I don't think anyway. And just a quick note, if you've never listened to Coffee with Scott Adams, I'd have to say this guy was almost like a hero to me because of all of the truth he's gotten out there. He's say a prayer for him still, because we're going to lose him any day now, and that just sucks. That's going to be a sad one. Anyway, don't you be sad. You make it a wicked awesome midweek. We will, don't forget about the live stream replay on X and on YouTube and on Facebook. We do the live stream Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time, and then it lives on as that replay and an audio podcast wherever you like to get those. And thanks for the subscribe buttons, too. Appreciate it so much. Have a wicked awesome Wednesday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.